it's a sign that I need to get over it and accept that some things aren't my business. There are readers out there who do that. Go to them. Don't make me choose. I already told you I'm a Libra. Tarot is like external storage for your brain. Do I even know what video I'm doing today? I just wrote down Kelly tagged me. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good. Today I am doing the Tarot 7 connection tag, which was started by Marilyn from Tarot Clarity. Kelly of Kelly Bear tagged me, and I will of course link both of them and their videos in the description below. I think it's a really cool tag. It's talking about like practice rather than just showing off decks, and I love showing off decks. The next two videos are me showing off my decks, but this one has some really juicy questions and I'm looking forward to getting into it, so that you have something to look at if you choose to watch this video. By all means, stick it on in the background podcast style. But I'm gonna be decorating a tarot bag. Fair warning, I'm not a sewist. There is no rhyme and even less reason to what I'm choosing to decorate this bag as, but it's the Goddess of Love tarot, and I just grabbed everything pink really that I own. So the first question is, are there any types of readings you won't do and why not? I think like probably a lot of readers, okay, first of all, there's kind of two parts to this question, because I read for myself and I also read for other people, and within there's a further branch between the reading for other people, because I do casual readings for like my partner and my friends when we're out for a drink, and then I also do paid client readings, and I kind of treat things slightly differently. So for paid client readings, and honestly for my friends and family, and honestly for myself, I'm not going to do like medical questions. I'm not going to do legal, financial questions. You know, go see, if you need to see a professional lawyer, go see a professional lawyer. If you need to see a doctor, like, I know that that's not always super accessible to everybody, but I'm not going to diagnose you with anything. I feel it would be irresponsible of me, so I'm not going to do it. You know, it's not something I'm comfortable with reading for other people. Also for myself and also others, I don't do readings of like what other people are thinking or doing. For me personally, I find that if I want to ask the tarot like what somebody's getting up to, have a conversation with that person, or just get over it and accept that some things aren't my business. And that's kind of my general ethos, is I'm like, I don't think it's my business to know what's going on in somebody else's head. And I don't feel like it's appropriate to answer that kind of question for somebody else, whether they're a paying client or whether they're just a friend. I just don't feel comfy doing that. I'm big on like privacy. It's something I have very big feelings about, is the concept of privacy. And I just don't feel comfortable with the idea of trying to like cartomantically figure out what somebody's up to. Also, when it comes to reading for other people, I'm aware that I have big feelings around the concept of privacy, and I don't think that I should therefore be doing readings for somebody else in a way that like feels personally triggering. Does that make sense? I'm sure there's a smoother way to construct that sentence. It feels maybe a little bit irresponsible of me to be doing a reading around something that is uncomfortable, or in a way that's uncomfortable. Like it just, there are readers out there who do that. Go to them. All right. And then there's also predictive readings, which is not something I do for paying clients. I might do it for a friend depending on the context and the conversation we were having. And I'm playing around with predictive readings in my own practice. Again, I think if you want a medium or a psychic, you should go to one. I don't know. I have complicated feelings about doing predictive readings for somebody else. I feel it can sometimes be a little bit disempowering. And I think because of the nature of the readings that I do written up reading reports remotely, because I don't know the full context of what a person might be asking for a predictive reading. That's not my strongest skill in tarot reading anyway, and it's not what I find the most interesting about tarot. I like reading into layers of symbolism and meanings in the cards, and like making connections and tying them all together. So yeah, I just think predictive reading is like another beast entirely, and it's not what I find most interesting. I don't think it's where my strengths lie particularly, so it's not something that I typically do for other people. But like I say, I'm kind of playing around with it in my own practice, and because I know the context of my own brain, so I know what I'm what I'm getting at when I ask myself for a reading, I guess. You know, I am prepared to deal with the whatever the consequences may be. Right? Does that answer that question? I'm honestly not sure. But yeah, are there any types of readings you won't do? I'm not going to do medical legal stuff. People train for that for a reason. I don't do predictive readings for paid clients. I might do them for a friend, and I'm kind of figuring out their place in my practice for myself. Second question, is there any tarot card you identify with the most? Which is it? It doesn't necessarily have to be a trump card. It can be a pip card. I will show you which ones they are. I'll show you from the Goddess of Love since I've got that out to do this nonsense. Oh my god, she's right on top. Okay, the Queen of Swords is one because she is my Libran signifier and is honestly who I think I am in a lot of ways. And the other one is a little bit more tongue in cheek, but also holds very true. Oh my god, it was right near the back. The Nine of Swords is the other one. So the Nine of Swords is because I think I'm funny. Your girl is depressed, your girl is full of nightmares, and the Nine of Swords, I recognize myself in the Nine of Swords a lot. This is a little bit tongue in cheek about identifying with the Nine of Swords, but specifically the like Rider-Waite-Smith woman up, head in her hands in the middle of the night. That's been me so often and in so many ways that I'm like, I can't help but identify with the Nine of Swords in a lot of ways. And then in a more like genuine answer, the Queen of Swords, because like I say, she's my Libra significator. Yeah, she's the last decan of Virgo and the first two of Libra, right? And I'm in the first decan of Libra. Also, I just think I am quite Queen of Swordsy. I love to communicate. I'm definitely a swords. I mean, like, look here, I've got two swords cards. I wouldn't even consider identifying with a cups card. I am quite cerebral. I am quite thinky and talky. I love to communicate. I love to research. I love to come up with ideas. I love to talk about ideas. I love to think my thoughts. I love to talk about thinking my thoughts. You know, I'm a very airy kind of person. I feel like the Queen of Swords gets a bit of a bad rap because often it's like, oh, she's a bitch. And I also know that I've had that said about me because she's not the most obviously like nurturing queen of the various court cards. You know, the Queen of Pentacles is very... I've seen both the Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of Cups be referred to as the most motherly of the various queens, and the Queen of Wands is like fiery and sexy, and like she might get a bit angry, but it's just because she's passionate. Whereas the Queen of Swords, I see a lot of like, oh yeah, she's, you know, sharp-tongued and she's a widow in a lot of people's writing about her, and she's kind of harsh and cold, and I know that's how I come off to a lot of people. Your girl's autistic, so that's a lot to do with it, I think. And I know that's how a lot of people do see me and how I do come off to a lot of people, but also I think I'm a good communicator. I just relate quite a lot to the Queen of Swords for like a lot of those reasons. So the Queen of Swords for sure. I don't think I really do identify with any of the trump cards. I don't know, because maybe it's because they're all archetypal and I don't relate myself to an archetype. I definitely, you know, identify with them at various different moments, but not as a whole person. I don't think they are complex enough to describe a whole person. They're complex for sure. They're not as complex as like an entire lifetime. You know, it's called the Fool's Journey for a reason, I think. We all go through the different phases of the majors, and we go through them in various orders and at various times, and we revisit parts and all that good stuff. So next question, is there any reading that you've ever done that either gave you the chills or impressed you? Don't betray anyone by name or anyone who's easily identifiable. Keep it anonymous. Okay, so I can't think of a particular reading off the top of my head, but the amount of times I have done a reading for my partner or about a situation that involves my partner in some way, which, you know, we live together and we're in a committed relationship. So a lot of my personal situations involve my partner in some way. The amount of times I've done a reading like that, and then the card that represents them has jumped out or just been in the reading is wild. Like, it's statistically unlikely the amount of times that I've had their card pop out at me, and in really relevant positions too. Like the amount of times that I've been doing a reading or doing a spread, and one of the spread positions is about like a resource or a support, and they've jumped out at me. And like, not that my partner's a resource, but you know, is a source of many things in my life. Yeah, statistically unlikely the amount of times that their card has come up in a reading. So I think that's my answer for that. I'm trying to think if I've ever done a particular reading that's just been spooky. I feel like I'm sure that I have, but it's not coming to mind right now. I'm very bad on the spot. I should have probably thought a little bit more about this before I started filming, but that would be sensible. So, question 4. What is your preferred system of tarot? Pip style includes Italian, Tarot de Marseille, or any Pip tarot deck, Thoth, Wake Coleman Smith, Continental, or any other. Why do you like this system best? So, I guess my preferred system is the Rider-Waite-Smith because it's the one I'm most familiar with. It's the system I learned on. It is the system I have the most, I guess, like knowledge about. But I guess with a bit of a caveat that a lot of my decks that I use most are not traditional Rider-Waite-Smith decks. I have one and I don't read with it. So it's all very Rider-Waite-Smith inspired, but it's also very much a conglomerate of all the various different decks that I've read with. But in terms of like base system, yeah, it's the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's the one I know. I am teaching myself Marseille. It feels like a very different system, does the Marseille, because the style of reading is very different and it does not feel intuitive for me. Like I say, the way I read is largely in making connections between things and drawing out the connections between the cards and the cards in the question and the cards in each other and the cards in like myself or the querent. And I read like, I feel like it should be more intuitive because I like to read into the symbolism on a card, but I think a lot of like Marseille decks and a lot of Pip decks in general, like the symbols are just the symbol of the suit, and so there's not a lot to read into there. It's like, yeah, there are 4 swords on this card and there are 6 swords on the other card, like the swords are the same. I find that less intuitive. I don't know, it just, my brain doesn't find it as natural as the way I read like Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, and I think a lot of that is just practice and knowledge, and I've worked with a lot of Rider-Waite-Smith decks and I've definitely been a newbie, not sure what I'm doing with Rider-Waite-Smith decks, so I'm sure that will just like come with time and with practice. I'm enjoying it, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying it and I'm enjoying learning. So that's my thoughts on the Marseille. I have a Thoth deck and I'm determined to like actually really get into the Thoth this year. I have in my head that like the autumn is going to be a good time for that. So that's kind of my vague plan, is to really get into the Thoth, read the Thoth specific book that I've got. I don't think Thoth is that different from Rider-Waite-Smith, especially considering that I know the meanings of the Rider-Waite-Smith now. I think pips are maybe a bit intimidating if you're learning, because Rider-Waite-Smith has whole pictures that you can kind of have a look at what's going on, and that's not the case in Thoth. But I think a lot of the meanings are transferable. A lot of the there's a lot more esoteric stuff going on in a Thoth deck and a lot more symbols, and I love a symbol, so I'm looking forward to learning the Thoth. But long story, not very short, I guess I prefer Rider-Waite-Smith, but that's not because I have a foundation in all of them and have chosen the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's just the one I have the most experience in. So that is my answer for prompt number 4. All right, prompt number 5 is, do you prefer doing in-person readings, remote, or other types, and why? Oh, both. Don't make me choose. I already told you I'm a Libra. So I like both, and I like them for different reasons. Like I said, I do readings for myself, which obviously I can only do in person. And I do readings for friends and my partner, usually on the fly. They'll be pretty casual. We'll be out for a drink and I'll have a deck, or, you know, we'll just be at home and decide to pull some cards, or I'll be playing with a deck or whatever. And those are in person and those are really fun. And I love doing those in-person readings because you get the kind of energy exchange and honestly just the conversational exchange. Like, I'll be asked the question, I'll pull my cards, I'll say, okay, well, I'm seeing like XYZ, there's a theme of duality, there's a theme of whatever. And then I'll get some like immediate feedback. They'll be like, oh my God, that makes sense. Or like even just the body language. And then I'll know what kind of avenue to talk more about. And I find that really fun. I really enjoy doing that. So my camera cut me off, but I was talking about doing remote readings for clients. So I like doing my in-person readings for friends and things, but I obviously, or I would hope it would be obvious, I take client readings a little bit more seriously. Obviously it's a paying client. I'm not going to be kind of silly about it the same way that I might with my partner asking me a question at a bar on like a random Sunday. Like, yeah, I have a different approach, and I really enjoy doing my tarot write-ups when I get to do readings with people. Enjoy being able to like take my time to lay everything out and lay out all the different like connections and things that I can draw between the cards in a way that kind of covers all the bases without having that instant feedback to go off. Because if I was pulling cards and I said, okay, so there's like a theme of duality and there's a theme of leaving something behind and there's a theme of, I don't know, boundaries. If I'm doing it in person, usually the person will instantly be like, oh my God, I know I need to set some boundaries. And so we kind of follow that avenue. Whereas I don't have that instant feedback with a remote reading. So I have to write it up in such a way that I'm going into enough depth, but without leaving anything out that I feel is an important theme of the reading or that is important in addressing their question. So it's very interesting and I enjoy it very much. And I enjoy doing remote and in-person readings for like totally different reasons. I have not yet done any in-person readings for like strangers, which is something I'm nervous about because I always feel like I'm not very good on the spot. And so I have the fear of like all my tarot knowledge just rushing out of my brain. It's something I'd like to do, but yeah, I like them for different reasons. In-person readings, fun. I get to kind of have that back and forth and feed off the energy of the reading. That's not what I meant, but I get to like read the energy of the person as we're doing the reading. And I like remote readings because they give me the time to lay everything out and, you know, lay out all the different threads and all the different connections without getting it all like tangled up in a way that's accessible for the client to actually read through and apply to their situation in like a bit more detail. So, question 6. Besides tarot, are there any other oracular systems you enjoy using? Which ones and why? Okay, so the only answer I think I can really give for this is oracle decks. The thing I love most about tarot is the system, and then I branched out into oracle because cards are pretty, I guess. But like oracle decks don't have the same system thing going as the tarot. And I don't think I really do any other oracular systems. Astrology, I guess. So I don't do astrology in any kind of predictive sense. But I do really enjoy like investigating the system. There are so many different moving parts to it, and I find that the more I learn, the better I understand everything. It's been a jump in headfirst and kind of learn on the job sort of approach for me, because I like, you know, as I've said, I like the system of tarot. I like how everything interconnects, and so that's what I enjoy about astrology as well. So yeah, that's it. I don't really do anything else in an oracular kind of sense. I use tarot, I use oracle cards, I'm teaching myself astrology, and that's about that. So, question 7, the final question: what solidified your connection with the tarot? And I don't think there was any one moment where I was like, aha, tarot is the thing. It just kind of got baked in more with every reading I did, I think. Probably once I realized, or well, it's one of those things that like you know, but you maybe don't articulate to yourself. At least that was the case with me. I think once I kind of realized the way that the 78 cards contain such a multiplicity of experiences and perspectives, and then like you can compound that with the variation between different decks and the way different creators choose to emphasize certain things or tell like certain perspectives of each card, and the different systems that you can work with. And then you can add in things like astrology, which is a whole other system and gives you a whole different layer of meaning. I think once I realized the kind of the framework that is a tarot deck and the way that you can essentially make that really complicated if you want to, but I love it. That's my favorite thing about the tarot. And once I kind of articulated to myself that that's what was going on and that's how I was reading it, there was like no going back, because I love me a system. I love me a system. I love me a framework. For anyone who doesn't know, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, but I did a master's degree in forensic anthropology and archaeology. And then so I tell people that I did that, and then they're like, but you're doing tarot now? And I'm like, yes. And it seems like such a 180, but I promise you it makes sense. in my brain, because what I like is the system and the structure. And what I did my master's dissertation on was the system and structure of disease in an archaeological context. So diagnosing, I suppose diagnosing is really the wrong word, but being able to figure out what diseases a person had in life from the skeletal remains. And my dissertation was on the way that we have a framework for that and the framework that we work from. And I won't get into it too much here, but basically I was making the argument that it doesn't make sense to just try and model off the like medical system because we're not dealing with living patients. I was making the argument that we really should be kind of restructuring the system a little bit to suit our own goals and our own resources and our own skill set. Anyway, all that to say, I loved this system and the framework, and I really enjoyed like deconstructing that and looking at where we get everything from and looking at where like biases come in and where it does and doesn't serve us. And when I realized I could do the same thing with the tarot structure, I was like sold. I was like, this is it. I love a system. I guess my special interest is the concept of a system, and tarot just really works well with that. I kind of don't know how I could not feel connected to the tarot at this point in time, because it's become the lens, or one of, a lens through which I view a lot of my interactions and experiences and relationships with people. And I've adopted it just as a perspective through which I live my life. And so I think I would be hard pressed to disconnect from the tarot. And then I guess to add to that, every time I'm doing a reading and a card pops up that I have previously had some kind of revelation about, I get to like in real time feel my brain like making connections, which I think is just extremely cool. So a card will pop up that I like, say, okay, the Six of Pentacles is one of my go-to examples for this. I understood the Six of Pentacles when I was reading with MJ Culline's Guardian of the Night Tarot, and I read her guidebook entry. And it kind of opened up a whole different facet of the Six of Pentacles. I realized it wasn't just sharing and charity, because that always felt a bit simplified. I realized that it's the Six of Pentacles is more than that. It's a power dynamic, and it's a give and take, and it's a symbiosis, and it's so much deeper than just like charity. And so whenever the Six of Pentacles pops up in a reading after that, I get to kind of add that association into whatever I'm reading about. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to explain it. It just deepens whatever I'm reading about. And I've kind of, because I've connected, or I've had so many of these moments with the cards where either I've read something in a guidebook that's kind of shifted my perspective, or it's just related to an experience I've had in real life that's shifted my perspective on the card. It's like tarot's like external storage for your brain. I think it's so cool. So like you contextualize the cards with your own experiences, and then every time you pull the cards, you have like access to that experience and access to, whatever revelations you've had about the idea of like boundaries by looking at the Emperor, or whatever the case may be. Like I say, it's not like a single moment that solidified my connection. I've not had that like aha, eureka, predicting the future or something like moment. It's just been this like ongoing process of everything making so much more sense the more time I spend with it, which is extremely cool. I really enjoy reading tarot. I enjoy learning about tarot, like the whole shebang. It's really great. I've spent so long talking about the system that I will spare you any more of that. That is my answer to that question. Is what solidified your connection with the tarot is just how much it facilitates connections with everything else, or how much it helps me see connections with everything else and become like a lens to look at the world through. So that was the final question. This has been a very long and very rambly video in which I have done some very poor sewing. I hope you've enjoyed. This has been a much more like rambly and personal video than I kind of expected it to be, but I think these are really cool questions. I've watched a few other responses, but I'm gonna watch much more of them now that I've answered it myself. Very grateful to Marilyn for creating the tag, and to Kelly for tagging me. I hope that lots more people will do the tag. I'm not going to tag anyone in particular, but if you want to make a response, then you can say I tagged you. That's fine. So yes, I'm going to leave it there. and I hope that you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for spending some time with me. Let me know if you resonate with my like perspective on the tarot, because I feel like it's not one I see a whole lot, is that the magic of the tarot is in the structure and the way it facilitates connections in like real life, because it didn't start out as magic and prediction and, I don't know, accessing something divine for me. It was just, I thought it was interesting and it kind of went from there. Okay, so that is everything from me. I promise I will let you go now. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed. Give me a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.